And comments expressed on the following radio program by its hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of RMCOnAir.com or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Knowledge of self.
Radio.
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 Uplift the mind, boy, I'll bring out the sun. Uplift the mind, boy, I'll bring out the sun.
Knowledge of self.
Radio.
Knowledge of self.
Radio.
Knowledge of self.
Radio.
Peace. Welcome to the Knowledge of Self radio show. My name is Teray Allah. To my left, I got my supreme brothers here.
Peace, Jarulullah.
Peace, Jakil Knowledge Allah.
And we have a special guest today. We would like to welcome Miss April Thompson to our show. She's going to add on to the discussion. Go ahead and speak to
How
the
you
people,
guys
April.
doing?
All right, peace.
Peace.
And welcome. So it's really good to have an additional voice for today's topic. So today's topic is the journey through love, hell, and right. So we'll be talking about relationships. In other words, how do we relate to one another? What are some of the issues that we all encounter, the challenges? And what are some of the things that actually lead to our relationships being strong and actually going in the right direction? Of course, all of us have quite a bit of experience, whether it be through current relationships or failed relationships. So this should be a really enlightening show. To begin with, if you'd like to call in and add on to today's show, our phone number here is 323-965-1600. Again, that's 323-965-1600. Today's show is brought to you by Global Position Solutions, pardon self. And again, it is a guide for up-and-coming entertainers. So we would encourage you to get in contact with them and, see what services they provide. To begin with, let's go ahead and speak a little bit about the current events. So I wanted to, Jakil or Jarul? Which of you was going to speak first? Okay.
I'll jump right in.
And have a name.
Yeah, peace. So, current event I wanted to hit you guys with this week is dealing with the FBI and them wanting to access your Facebook messages and different private emails. So that kind of goes back to something we were building about last show about your privacy on your email. So basically the FBI doesn't think that they need to have any kind of warrant to be able to access your stored email on any kind of cloud service. So that's like your Gmail, your Yahoo, nor do they, or they're trying to argue that they also can go into your Facebook emails also. So this is kind of where the big deal happens. Previously to that, though, they did pass a law stating that they can't get into your, or they need a warrant to get into your personal email on your computer. So what that really means is if you have like an email client like an Outlook or Thunderbird, something like that, where you download your emails from the server onto your local computer, they would actually then need to come get a warrant to get those emails. Whereas if they're on a cloud, they're saying that basically that's free information and they can go get that.
And that's why they're pushing the cloud so heavily, right?
Right. That's why everything is on the cloud. They're like, put your data. I mean, I got this new phone, and I was asking a couple of people, like, yo, how big of a memory card did you get for your phone? And a couple of responses were, I didn't get any memory. I upload everything to the cloud, and I stream it. Man, yeah, I was like, that's cool. I'll just go buy a memory card. Thanks.
Wow. and you know, the interesting thing is, because April is one of my colleagues, one of the things we were informed about is that our organization, they actually monitor our emails, and it is through Microsoft Outlook.
Yeah.
So it's common sense, but for the most part, they did remind people that certain content people need to be mindful of before sending emails, and also tell people who are sending them to you. But I generally don't send anything personal through the email anyway.
Right,
So,
right.
but
Certain
yes.
keywords, too, will set it off. Because they're probably using like an Exchange server or something like that.
So we have the next current event through G. Rule.
Yeah, P. So I was looking at the news, and there was an incident that occurred in Sacramento, California, where basically two parents brought their child to the hospital because the child had flu-like symptoms. I guess what happened was the nurses in the hospital were kind of suspect. The mother states they gave her baby antibiotics. She asked why. The nurse said she didn't know. Okay. So furthermore, after that, a couple other incidents happened. The doctor actually did an examination on the baby, found that the baby did have like a heart murmur. And
oh, really? And did that come before or after the antibiotics that were given to the baby without
afterwards?
the mother's consent?
Right. So did the antibiotics cause the murmur?
Okay.
Who knows? But nah. So yeah, the baby had a heart murmur. So the doctors were talking about doing surgery. So the mother, the motherly instincts kick in, and she's like, I should probably get a second opinion. This hospital is a little whack. You know what I mean? So she basically decided to take her baby out. The doctor actually released the baby in his notes.
Okay.
And she took the baby home.
Because they can't deny you from doing that.
Exactly.
At least not yet.
Right. So what happened was, they go home. The police came the next day, and she showed the doctor's note saying that the baby was released. The police left. The day after that, the police came back with the Child Protective Services.
Wow.
And took the baby away.
Wow.
The father, I guess, went outside to talk to the police and said, "What's the deal?" And they throw the pops on the ground.
Wow.
Basically rough him up, take his keys, let themselves in the house.
Wow.
And snatch the baby out of the mother's arm and take the baby. So, Sacramento, California. So,
What's going on in terms of the legislation in Sacramento where we're taking people's children?
Right, and this is prior to any Obamacare. So, it's going to obviously, you'll probably see this more on a larger scale as we go forward. You know what I mean? So,
Wow.
thought that was interesting.
Protect your family. The current event I had to share today, there was a bulletin that came out May the 2nd, and the FBI has since put Assata Shakur. If you can all remember, Assata Shakur was a former member of the Black Panther Party as well as the Black Liberation Army who fled the United States in the early 70s. And she allegedly shot a New Jersey State trooper on a highway. And, of course, all of the evidence that people have, brought to the forefront has definitely showed not only her innocence, but the negligence on part of the New Jersey State troopers. The fact that now she's on...
I didn't mean to cut your wisdom, God, but at that point, aren't they supposed to drop the case when the evidence that you bring against someone is faulty?
Sure. in a world where the justice system is just. But the problem is that she's considered, she's on the list for being one of the most wanted terrorists.
The most wanted.
Right,
She's
on
like
the most wanted
woman that
Right.
made the list or something, right?
That's
Right.
what makes it special.
So
But what's interesting is how did she make the most wanted when Osama bin Laden didn't make the most wanted list for blowing up the Twin Towers?
Right. So what message are we basically getting in terms of people who were harassed or killed or incarcerated during the COINTELPRO era? And the fact that she's in Cuba, one can only guess what's going to happen when that government changes. So again, I'll just say it like Dead Prez, hands off Assata. That's how I see it. Okay.
Right.
So why don't we go ahead and move on? I want to thank everybody for the current events and get into the questions for today's show. First one is, what is the current state of male-female relations in the original community? So when we talk about the original community, we're talking about all non-white people, okay? Secondly, what do women look for in men? That's really interesting. Okay. What do men look for in women? Also, what role does the government play in our relationships? I really want to get to that point. Number 5, how much do friends and family affect who you date? How does an unexpected child change or add on to the dynamics of the relationship? Are long-range relationships possible, and what kind of thing does that bring? So in other words, if you're dating someone that lives in a different state and you're not married to them, is it possible that relationship can work out? And finally, what are some of the ways we can better relate to each other to improve our relationships? I really want to know number 8. Pose that question, man. Okay. Number 9, does television affect our view of male or female relationships? And finally, how did or does enslavement play into how we deal with each other? So we're talking about what it was like prior to not only the transatlantic slave trade, but the arrival of the Europeans into the Americas. What were our relationships like? And here's a quote for you today. It's by Marcus Garvey. A reading man and woman is a ready man and woman, but a writing man and woman is exact. So read and write in your relationships, but most importantly, at least from my experience, you have to read the individual that you are in a relationship with. You have to begin to learn who they are. Anyone else wanted to add on to that?
I have a question about that.
Yes.
So what happens if you read the person that you're with and you realize that you don't really like the book that they're writing? What happens at that point?
You close the book and get another one.
Yeah, at that point, you still at the library. So, you know what
Well,
I'm saying? You can
isn't
put
that
book
a
back on the
part
shelf.
of the bigger problem and why we're asking a lot of these questions in the first place? Do we give up too easily? Do we walk away too easily instead of kind of working through and, building a common piece?
I would say sometimes people just pick up the wrong book.
In the first place, right?
You know what I'm saying? They got a romance novel when they should be getting science fiction or something.
Well, interesting topic. So hopefully we kind of come back to that throughout all these questions because
Hold us to it. We definitely will.
that's something I'm struggling with
Right.
in relationships. So
Okay. All right.
Well, we're going to answer that question and more when we come back from our break. Please stay with us. Peace.
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 Peace, and welcome back to the Knowledge of Self radio show. Again, my name is Teray Allah. To my left.
Peace, Jarulullah.
Peace, Jaquil Allah.
And this is April Thompson.
All right, so before we left, we started talking a little bit about relationships, and basically the question that was posed is, what if you don't like the book that you are reading in terms of a companion? So before we kind of go through that a little bit more in depth, the first segment is titled Love. So I wanted to share a definition, and then we'll just go around the round table and kind of define what love is. So to begin with, according to dictionary.com, love is a feeling of warm personal attachment or deep affection as for a parent, child, or friend. So who would like to add on first? I definitely would like to go last on this one because I have a lot to learn.
With me, man, I really strive to look at things scientifically, and I was actually watching a documentary called Quantum Activist, and to me, he broke down love the most scientific I've ever heard. He basically said that love is actually when your immune system adopts that person as yourself. So you spend enough time with that person, you get close, and then over time, your immune systems basically merge, right? So that's why when you do break up, you do feel that sense of sickness, and you can actually physically get sick.
Right.
So to me, I would say that would be the most realistic depiction of what love to me would be.
And
but
that's kind of like a whole deeper meaning to the whole connecting and oneness.
Right. And then
into the relationship.
Yeah. So it's obviously we say that love is the highest form of understanding. So obviously, when you spend time examining a person, you come to know that person. You've actually, experienced things with that person.
Right.
Now you come to a place of understanding. Now you guys should be able to connect on that higher level.
Right. Now, so that's interesting because I would also say, and I've asked this question many times too, what is love? Because every time when you build with anyone and you ask them what is love, you always get all these weird, fuzzy, warm-sounding things, and no one ever really gives you a definition of what love is. And so it's really cool coming in this knowledge and then actually coming to a definition of what love is, being the highest form of understanding. That being said, though, when you reach that understanding or the highest form of understanding with someone, does that necessarily mean you still need to be with that person?
Wow, that's a great question.
Well, once you reach that level, I would say you have to make a decision. Does this person have what you feel like that you need as far as, coming together to be a better person or build or have a determined goal? If you guys have similar determined goals, then of course, yeah, you guys should merge and build. But if you guys are going in different directions, then, close the book.
Right. And that's the highest form of understanding.
Exactly.
Huh? I understand that although I may love you and we have feelings and things might have been cool between us, we can't necessarily be together.
Right.
I mean, I love to have a BMW, but paying, $600 for an oil change, we can't necessarily be together.
All right. What's your take on it, April?
Well, it's kind of the opposite of the scientific thing. I believe in this organic chemistry, and I believe in emotions.
Okay.
I have been in love with totally different people, but it's the same feeling. It's that love at first sight, kind of. I see you. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something about you. And if I can kiss you or hold your hand, I can marry you. I'm looking at this dictionary.com, and I think that that's pretty accurate for a non-romantic love. But
that's interesting too, that word romantic.
Yeah.
Well, no, just the word romantic specifically.
Right.
That's kind of another one of those love words. We'll talk about it.
But when it comes to romantic love, I've only been in love maybe a few times in my life, but I don't have a definition for it, and I can't explain it. It's just something that you feel at that moment, and only feeling that with someone else can take you from the person you currently love, whether you're together or not.
That's interesting.
Well, just to add on, I think love, the highest principles of love is trust. Okay, and more than that, out of that trust comes respect. So once you have trust for that individual, respect is supposed to blossom from that, and then it's easy to identify what is the bond between you and that other person. And also when we're talking about the mistakes that we all make, because we all make mistakes in relationships, there's no doubt about that. And sometimes I think when we're using the word love, we have to make sure we don't use that word loosely. So, for example, I'm specifically speaking about my history. It takes a little while for me to acknowledge that I love a person. We'll go back to the word that was used on a romantic level. Okay, I may love you as in terms of someone that.
Can we define that word? Romantic.
Romance? I have no idea what that means. What does it mean to be romantic?
Well,
I mean, is it low lights and candles and some Marvin Gaye?
Not necessarily to be romantic, but it's the love that you have for a person that you're going to be physical with, a person that you're going to love in that man-woman sense.
Okay.
And it's interesting, Teray, you just said something. You said loving someone builds respect and understanding and etc. I agree. Ideally, that's what we want our relationships to be. And if our relationships became that, we wouldn't need this dialogue right now.
Right.
So my question to bounce off that is, how often do those relationships become that respect-filled, friendship-filled situation that turns to 50 or 60 years?
Okay.
Very rare. It's very rare.
Because, I'm sorry.
Right. I mean, because when I reflect on my grandparents, they visibly loved each other, but they weren't physical with one another in terms of seeing them kiss and hug and all of that in their 70s. I never witnessed that. So are we to say that they did not love each other at that point in their marriage? Or are we to say that they simply had a different foundation for their love, which was based on, I respect you, I trust you, and I know that, you're going to be there for me, whether we're physical or not. Now, how long does that take? I really think it's a conversation that has to be held prior to entering a relationship. I was talking about this today. I think it's time for men and women to iron out all of the possibilities of what may go wrong in a relationship prior to really getting serious, even if it's...
Yeah. No, that's it. That's it right there.
Do we have to write a list? I don't know.
I think it'll be a good idea, but how do you know who to write that list to? Because by the time you realize you need to write a list, you're already caught up. You're already in it. And you're like, I'm sorry, we can't curse.
You can curse.
Yeah.
Can't we?
You can curse.
You're like, shit, can I get out? You can't leave. You're stuck. The immune system situation,
Yeah.
you're tied to this person. So
that's why I think in the beginning you have to be patient. I think like in this world we live in, everything's a fingertip away. So you need a question answered, you go on Google, you get it right now. So you're hungry, you go to fast food, you get it right now. So
no doubt.
I think in this society, we've gotten to a point where everything is instant gratification. I need it now. Instead of taking time with each other, really learning each other and developing a true relationship. Because you can't relate with somebody unless you take time to know that person.
No doubt. So that's what I'm talking about, right? Love is the knowledge wisdom degree, right? So you first need to do the knowledge to the person. Then, you know what I'm saying? Then you need to look at their wisdom, what it is that they're saying that they're doing.
Right.
And then come to that understanding. So that in itself takes time. So when you come to that understanding or that love, now you know if you're ready to match immune systems with this person. Or be like, you know what? If I was to mess with your ecological system, you'd make me sick.
Right.
Because that's what happens, right? After the whole factuation period, because now we're talking science, right? So this is where me and you agree at. So after the whole infatuation period, which is like 3 months or so, right? So now you wake up, because now you guys probably already, you know what I'm saying, did the adult thing, got some Marvin Gaye going, was romantic, right? And so now you wake up you know what I'm saying, in her house or her in your house, whatever the situation is, and you looking like, yo, why does she not fold her clothes, or why does he, da 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 da? And these are all things that person was still doing before that.
Right,
You just
right.
didn't do the knowledge to.
Right.
So
Well, how come you
jumped
didn't
right to
ask that question
understand
sooner? As soon as you saw it.
I was just gonna say,
Well, that's what I'm saying. People
I
jump
don't
to the
think that's
to
the
the
real
love.
issue. I think that's your excuse, your exit strategy.
Right. Well, so then you didn't really love the person.
So, okay, this is my question because I'm the emotional one. I'm the
Okay.
love at first sight person.
Okay.
Okay. So, let's see. I'm sorry, I drew a blank.
That's
Can
cool.
we come back to
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
that's cool. I
Because,
mean,
because I did want to move along. We can
Okay.
revisit this.
Yes.
Well,
Uh-huh.
But I did want to build briefly on how quite possibly our relationships were prior to, especially those that were brought from Africa.
Right.
What could we say a little bit about in terms of how we related in his, ancient history, so to speak. So before we start that discussion, because I know we were going to spend, a minute or two, some of the books that we were drawing on as far as the original people and our experiences before we came to North America. This book is titled Introduction to Black Studies by Dr. Maulana Karenga. The other book we brought is the fourth edition, A History of the African People by Robert W. July. And I think this is a really good text because it tells you a little bit about how the communities were during that time. Last one, From Slavery to Freedom by John Hope Franklin. I'm sorry, not the last one. Next to last one, really great book, African Religions and Philosophy, breaks down the social organization among original people in Africa. So we're going to go out on break, and when we come back, we'll talk briefly about how we related during the ancient period of time, and then we'll bring it back to you a little bit more modern, 2013. Peace.
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 Peace. Welcome back to the Knowledge Yourself radio show. My name is Teray Olah.
Peace. Jarulala.
Peace. Jakil Knowledge Allah.
And our special guest.
I am April Williams.
All right. Nice to have you back again. And before we left, we were talking a little bit about what our relationships were like during ancient times, specifically before some of our people were brought to the Americas, as well as the people who were already in the Americas and had their first encounter with Europeans. So just the text that I had showed you the last segment, one of the things that comes out, especially in Mbiti's text, is the fact that our communities were more communal in origin. And now that we live in the Americas, we can establish the fact that there's a little bit more of an individualistic philosophy in regards to relationships, family, and everything else, which in our studies, it appears to be that goes against the natural order. Now, if you ask most people in 2013, which is more important, your family as a community or you as an individual, some of us would probably say, well, in some cases, I think it's more important for me to better myself and hopefully my family follows, as opposed to you and your family working together for that one common cause. So what would be some of the philosophy, or at least some of the things that you both uncovered in terms of what our communities were like, especially in the households and during ancient times?
From my point of view and in my research, it was just more equality. It was real balanced, and it wasn't such a infatuation with sex and sexual things. You know, like the whole desirous and gotta have sexual relations. Like that wasn't very of utmost important. Going back to what you were saying about community, it was more they were more focused on what is best for the collective. What can we do to come together to make the collective a better situation?
Right. That's like there's a picture I saw on Facebook. They actually made a Linux, which is an operating system, distribution after it. I may mess the name up, but it's called Ubuntu. But the picture has a story of like 5-6 young African kids in the village sitting underneath a tree with some fruit. The story behind it goes, there's this white dude there, and he told all these kids, hey, whoever makes it to the tree first can have all the fruit. And so they all lined up, and he said, okay, ready, go. And all the kids looked at each other and grabbed hands, and they all walked over to the tree together. And so he asked them, like, yo, why didn't, whatever, you're, kid number one, you're faster than everyone else. Why didn't you go get all the fruit? And he was like, well, what good would it have been for me to have all the fruit and not be able to share it with my brothers?
Wow. Right. And I think that's a really great point, Jakil, because a lot of our studies reveals that originally our people understood the importance of relying upon one another in order to survive as a community. So the responsibility of the male or a man in those communities primarily was the fact that they were supposed to continue the legacy of the family. So when we get into the Americas, it's a little bit different, and I'm sure many of you out there can see it. We all have friends, whether it be men or women, but predominantly men have a tendency in America to think that being a parent or taking responsibility for their children is an option, whereas during ancient times before we came over here and learned from Caucasians how to, nurture our families, raise our families, now we have a little bit of a different scenario going on. So it's no longer communal. We come up together as a family. It's more individualistic. Well, I don't want to be with her, and that's pretty much it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think we should move along in terms of what would be some of the things women may have looked for prior to enslavement. What does the man, in essence, symbolize, at least prior to being castrated, so to speak, in the Americas? What would be some of your ideas about that?
Well, I would say for one, some of the ideas that we hold in America, would still have held true back in ancient times. As far as, it was a group thing, but you still as a man had to be able to hold your own weight. So in being able to hold your own weight, that would have been mean you need to be able to supply food, clothing, and shelter for your woman. So I think she was really looking for those basic qualities. You can provide food, clothing, and shelter. I mean, it was very communal, like we were building before. So if she liked you, she liked you. It was all a matter of could you provide those things.
And much of our studies, what comes out is that the woman was also the backbone of the family. It wasn't considered a patriarchy. In some respects, the family, the connection between the family was through family on the mother's side. So when you get to the Americas, right, it's a little bit of a different story. It's a patriarchy, male-dominated society, specifically white male-dominated society. So now here we are in 2013, and I do have an interesting statement that's written down. You don't love me, you love what I do for you. So let's bring it current, okay? Because I've actually said this in my life. And, my name's Teray, and I'm going to tell you the truth. And the reason why I said that is because at some point when the relationship begins to fail, you begin to get the idea that this person doesn't love your being, but more or less they love what you are doing for them in terms of support, financial support, and just really believing in someone else's dreams and their goals. So I wanted to know, how can we determine the difference between when someone loves you as a being who quite possibly, like, you strip everything away, the money, the job, everything else, and I mean, how can we determine whether or not that person loves us as opposed to what they love, or that they're in love with what we do for them? I hope that came out right.
Yeah, no, but I think the question might have been in the answer, or the answer might have been in the question. There you go. There you go. But anyone else want to add on? I don't want to steal the shine.
Free reign on this one.
Yeah.
How do you know when a person's in love with you? That's essentially the question. How do you know when they love you?
Well, the reason why I said the answer was in the question was, as you were describing it, you kind of mentioned how if you stripped everything away from that person, you know what I'm saying? And that's when you're really looking at the person for what it is. And I said at that point, if you can still be with that person, you know what I'm saying, without the house on the hills and the flashy cars and, whatever it is, I mean, if you can just be with the person just to be with that person, then that's the person that you love. If being on a person is dependent upon what they do for you, then you don't necessarily love that person.
I agree.
Okay, April.
And as a woman, I know we probably look at these things differently, but I think that, yes, you should be able to love that person regardless of what they do for you, but it's okay to want to live a good life.
No doubt.
Just like before the slavery, or I'm not sure how you termed it, we looked for certain things in a man. We looked for someone to keep us safe. We looked for someone who can hunt. We looked for someone who can build for us, and someone who can take care of things while we were home building the children and things like that. Now, there's some men who attract a woman solely on economics. I mean, from day one, they walk in and it's about, this is what I want to do for you. And they don't really give the woman a chance to get to fall in love with them, because you've become accustomed to what it is they give you. So it pretty much stands on that. That being said, if a man approach a woman and they build, I think it's okay for a woman to look for a man who has the potential for success, especially if she's putting everything on hold to support him, to raise his children, to keep a household for him. We're not doing that so that 15 years later we can be on a park bench somewhere, or with no roof over our head, or we can't send our kids to college. That doesn't mean, I'm a gold digger or whatever. It means that I want a good life. I'll get it for myself if I was alone, but I chose to support my king. You know what I mean? And do whatever it takes to have you find your success.
That's
I think,
admirable too. You can't,
yeah.
and I think you're a sucker. You if you do a woman like that wrong.
Right. I mean, you know,
That's what
now
every man
there
out
is
there is looking
there has been quite a few things to come out talking about how it's beginning to be very common where men or women, they're asking about your credit score. So, you know, I mean, how about a round number? I mean, honestly, here's a round number, man. I mean,
Can you get a cell phone by yourself?
Depending
how
on your
much does
age,
a man have to make?
you know, depending on your age, that's a very valid question. Now, me, I don't want to put my age on blast, but, you know, I'm up there. So maybe 10 or 15 years ago, it wasn't a big deal. But at this point, yeah, what is your credit score? And if it's bad, because, hey, life happens. Is it because of a divorce? Is it because of some children or something like that? Or is it because you wanted to, you know, live with your mama and drive a Benz? You know what I mean? So, you know, people come down hard on me at times because at this point, well, have you ever owned a home? Why not? You know, have you ever had a sustainable career? I understand we change. You know, I've been divorced and I've had to rebuild. So I understand that, but I need to see evidence of why you're at this point
I like how
right now.
the stress was placed on that word, evidence.
Yeah. Show and prove.
You
Yes.
have to
Knowledge.
prove.
That's the knowledge.
Right.
That is the knowledge.
That's
Because
the
we
knowledge.
do fall on hard times.
Yeah.
There's an interesting financial stat that came out through the Bureau of Labor, and it talks about exactly how many Black, Asian, and white men are in the workforce. And one of the things that I found interesting is that out of Black, Asian, white, and so-called Latino men, I'm being cool today, it said that Asians actually, on average, Asian males made more than white males. So white males would come in second. And then we have Black men, so-called African Americans, that are also kind of neck and neck with Hispanic men. And actually, across gender, women make less,
Okay.
and Black women make far less than white women. So with those odds, I think it's something that we need to take into consideration. How does that affect our relationships, the reality going on in the economy? Can we come back to this when we come back from the break?
Sure.
Indeed.
True indeed. Please come back. Thank you for watching. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Welcome back to the Knowledge of Self radio show. Again, my name is Teray Ola.
Peace, Jarulala.
Peace, Jaquil Knowledge Allah.
And this is April Thompson.
And before we left, we were talking a little bit more about how important finance plays into a relationship. Now, I think we need to talk about one of the most hot topics in any conversation. What is the difference between love and lust? And more importantly, how long should you wait before you actually have sex with a person? And I would like to begin this part.
Are you the best knower?
Right. Well, I have some experience. So I'll tell you this. One of the things that I heard from an older brother of mine, not my physical brother, but just a brother in the neighborhood who was probably about 4 or 5 years older than me. One of the things that he told me when I was like 17, 16 years old, he said that you should wait 6 months before you get physical with a woman. Because within that 6 months, you can determine whether or not there is a real attraction or if it's just lust. Mm-hmm. Of course, there are some exceptions to the rule. So how does everyone see that? I mean, is there a waiting period before we get physical with someone?
I think you definitely should wait, because during that time you should be examining that person, really getting to know them, because obviously when you first meet somebody, they're going to present to you their best qualities. Right. It's kind of like that bag of chips where on the front it says no trans fat, no this, no that. But when you turn it around and you look on the back and you really examine the ingredients, you see, wait a minute. This is bad for me, this is bad for me, this is bad for me.
Don't want to merge your immune systems with that.
Exactly. So during that 6 month time or however long you take, examine that person and then really pay attention to the things that you don't really like. If those are things that you feel like you can deal with, then go forward. But if not, you got to leave them alone.
Yeah, no doubt. I was actually building with a brother in a different state, Imperial. I'm not going to give you guys the exact science, but he said something very similar to the sense that, you should wait before, and so he was obviously building from a male perspective, so he was saying you should wait before you definitely have any kind of sexual activity with the female, just to examine who and what she is, and see how you guys kind of go together. More importantly, he was also building on the science that she should acknowledge you being God. Like you said, like you're king. So I think a lot of times people get in relationships and the woman may be on some like, well, I'm the woman and I'm mighty, hear me roar, and I don't need you. And so I'm not going to acknowledge you as being, maybe in her mind, something higher or greater than what I am. Mm-hmm. And so when you kind of have that conflict of roles, really, I think that leads for a lot of issues.
Right.
And so that's part of taking that time. If that woman going to acknowledge who you are, then you can acknowledge who she are, and is she going to live up to who she's supposed to be?
Okay, let's get the woman's perspective.
Well,
how long should you wait?
Question 1, do I have a breaking case of emergency love over here? Or are we just going dry? Because I agree, but we're grown. Right. We've experienced things. We're used to things. It's just not realistic. It really isn't.
The waiting period?
The waiting period.
Okay.
I don't think it's realistic. I don't know if I can. Yeah, I can wait 6 months if I had a friend.
Wait 6 months if you had a friend.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I can definitely do that. But I've been married. I've been in long-term relationships. So the realism of going 6 months just without physical contact, for me, I don't. Yeah.
Right, and it's definitely a trial. When you're getting to know someone, I think from my perspective, it's just you want to figure out if you're really into this person. When you're married, though, and you have an established relationship, that's a little bit different, especially in marriage. I mean, if you're waiting 6 months in a marriage, you may have some issues. You need to talk to some people about that.
Well, can I ask this?
Sure.
Women, unfortunately, they use sex as power. The power of the P. Now, of course, if you come into something with that perspective, I think that's the wrong perspective. But I'm talking about just, human nature. wanting to be close to someone. Obviously, you're going to make mistakes. I've made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. That's life. I think that makes us grow. But to run away from physical contact, like, you definitely should get to know this person and not jump into it just for the physical aspect of it. But I think 6 months is a little extreme.
Right. I was one of those extreme brothers.
But I think that comes back to everybody wants it now. You know, I gotta have it.
It doesn't have to be tonight.
Right. But I mean,
It could be tomorrow.
my thing is in a relationship. my thing though is, like, in a relationship, what's important? Like, what's the most important thing that you look for in a person?
Well, this was my question that I blanked out on earlier.
Okay.
You know, we meet a lot of people. How do you choose that one person you're going to spend this 6 months getting to know when, you know, you don't know if this is the person? So what's stopping you from meeting new people? Like,
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
what makes these two people stick together for 6 months and they don't know if they have anything happening?
Okay, go ahead.
Oh no, well, based on what you said, is if there is love at first sight, you see this person that you feel like, okay, yeah, I'm attracted to them. Let me get to the root of what this feeling is. Let me spend time with this person. Let me spend the 6 months, and let me figure out, is it something, like, what is the root of this energy that I'm feeling towards this person?
Right, and that takes us into our next question. What is a loving, healthy relationship look like? Can you have a loving and healthy relationship without having sex for a period of time, especially if it's a new relationship? What does that look like to everyone? Because, you know, I mean, we see people in the park, and I'll tell you, you know, I've experienced this. You know, after a breakup or a failed marriage, you could be sitting in a park or a public place, and you get close to hating people that you see that are really into each other. You're like, man, I hate them. You know what I mean? I feel so left out.
That's not real.
So what does a loving and healthy relationship look like to everyone?
My thing is, when you're close with a person, it doesn't necessarily always have to be sexual, though. Like, you should be able to connect with somebody on a mental level, and that, to me, is more close than you would be physically.
Right.
You know
I always say, after I hit it, and I'm laying there. I mean, you know what I'm saying? We're all adults, so right. After I do that, and I'm laying there, I'm not going to exactly go to sleep right away. So I'm gonna have some conversation for you. If you can't keep up with conversation, like, yo, we honestly can't have sex anymore because it's just kind of lame.
But you know that before you guys laid down, right?
Nah, not necessarily.
Really?
Not necessarily.
Don't wait the 6 months.
Yes, exactly. That's the point. That's what I'm saying.
That's the thing.
On face value, people may seem to be intelligent until you actually start to talk, and you're
But
like,
how
you don't
does
even know
sex
basic
change
politics.
that? Does sex like shake up the brain or something? Either this person is intelligent and you guys can hold a conversation, or you can't.
Yeah, but sex doesn't necessarily mean that you was going to talk to that person.
But see, for a
now we're talking about the
man-
difference between love and lust,
See,
though.
the thing about for a man, see, a woman can put in that 6 months and they can build with this man and they can connect. Men love the chase, and that's what that's about for them. You know, they're holding out because they're going to get it. 6 months, you know, we're going to get it. And
I
then
wouldn't say
and
every
then you
man.
a lot of you guys, you guys all have it in you at some point. You may meet a woman and it's not about that.
Right.
But it's about the chase. So, you know, you can do the 6 month thing and you can hang in there and you get there and all of a sudden, man, she's not folding her clothes. Well, she didn't fold her clothes before, it didn't bother you, but you done already got what you were chasing and what you were in it for. So everything's changed. Oh, I can't have a conversation with her, but you were able to have a conversation with her yesterday. What changed?
All right, you know, and that's an interesting segue into,
Go ahead.
I think, into the next part of our discussion, which was when you're in a committed relationship, right? It's said and done. All right, you're not chasing people anymore. What's one component that keeps a relationship together? Okay, whether you're having sex or not regularly in a committed relationship, what are some of the elements of a successful relationship?
So that's perfect because that kind of, we can answer both questions. So what keeps that together really is that basis, which you should have started out with. And that's part of the whole 6 month thing, or however long it really takes for you to do the knowledge, right? They say he goes under the study for 35 to 50 years. well, you obviously don't have 35 to 50, you know what I'm saying? Whatever that time period is that takes you to know someone, or you feel like you can know someone to make that next move with them. But within that time period, that person should become your friend. So if that's not really your friend that you're having sex with, because sex at this point, now we're going to talk energetically, right? Because now you're mixing, like the whole immune system, you're mixing your energies with that person. You see what I'm saying? And so if that person is really not your friend, I mean, it's like making a deal with the devil, right?
Right, and eventually you'll feel it too.
Yeah.
You'll feel it. You'll feel. I mean, you may have one experience with that person, and then you may have some other experiences later. And you know, if their mental powers, I'm directing this to women. If the male's mental powers are not found or sound, so to speak, you're gonna detect that. Boredom sets in. Like, that's all he is. You know, we get physical.
Right.
Is there anything more to you than that? You're just one-dimensional. What else is going on besides the fact that you may be good in bed? and for the men out there, you have to do a little bit more than rely on your sexual prowess. You know, definitely. You have to have way more to offer, because when you're an old man, the tide changes, man.
So read a book.
So read a book.
Read some of these books here.
True indeed. I also wanted to go into a little bit as far as divorce and things that lead to divorce. Do you think original people in America were better off in terms of marriage? Were our families more solid, let's say maybe 50 years ago than they are now, and why?
Well, which confines of marriage are you talking about? So that's why when she was building about checking your credit score and all that, no, I'm not mad at you at all, because now when you're talking marriage, you're talking about a strictly legal procedure, right? Because you can go do the whole wedding thing with your church guy, but to make it official, like legal, recognized, it has to be a legal document. At that point now, we're merging finances and accounts. Yeah, so if I'm taking on your, you know what I'm saying? Because now we're talking about at a deeper level. Yeah, at one level, I have to take on your characteristics and you have to take on mine. That's the 8, so we can build together, right? But now when we get married, if you got some debt, that's not my debt. I may not want your debt.
Absolutely.
Okay, and before we wrap it up, I just wanted everyone maybe to give one idea to the viewers out there about what's one thing that you should do in a relationship to improve it, just real quick.
Communicate. Now, by communicate, you know, everybody says communicate, but when you communicate, listen. You have to listen. Like, don't just speak, say, I want this, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Listen to what the other person has to say. Take that in, regurgitate it, and then build. You know, that's what I would say.
No doubt. I would say go do something fun with that person. You know what I mean? And by fun, like, that's not watching a movie. Something where you got to interact with that person so you guys can kind of build and communicate and kind of spark that thing that made it happen in the first place.
And April?
I think that both parties should be less competitive and they should become partners.
Great.
I like it.
Great thoughts.
Click the like button on that one.
And I'll just say, study with your loved one. You know, improve your minds, and everything else will fall in sync. A couple of things that we wanted you guys to do. First thing, write down your short-term and long-term goals with your companion. And abstain from sexual intercourse for this whole week. Woo! I can just see this show turning off right now. Jaquil said, read 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh yeah, I got that on a note from a friend. Yeah, for women in a relationship, y'all should check out 50 Shades of Grey. Apparently, that's going to heat things up for you. So.
Okay, I might have to check that out. And then
I'm scared of that one.
view the habits. Look at the habits of a couple you know has a successful relationship or marriage, and ask them questions. I'd like to thank my brothers for coming. Sister April, I would thank you for coming.
Indeed.
Thanks for having
It was
me.
a great discussion. I would like to thank all of you for watching, and we'll say peace until next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Happy Mother's Day.